Okay, hello, people who are here early. Yay. I love you. So, we are going to get started right at the top of the hour. Hi, Devin. Yay. Okay, so chat's working. That's good to know. Let me know if you can see me and hear me okay. We are a couple minutes early, so I'm going to let people stream in. And I'm also going to be on my own device so that I can make sure things are functioning. Judy says, can see and hear you. Thank you. Sorry, that's my other device. Okay, just so I can make sure that things are working. So my name is Sandra Wickham. Thank you for joining us. My wonderful friend, Marie Bilodeau, is going to do a presentation, but unfortunately she couldn't make it live. So she sent me a recording. So I'm going to play you her video, which is amazing. And the only thing is it's 55 minutes long. And so we all know that, at these things, we got to get to the next thing. So I want to start this video like right at the top of the hour, if we can. If anything ever happens where you can't see me, you can't hear me, you can't see the video, hear the video, let me know in the chat because I can see the chat. Hopefully everything will be functioning properly. If once we get going, those of you who are here early, if we get going and someone in the chat wonders why Marie is not like answering questions, then maybe someone can just say like, this is a recording in case I don't see it. I'll try and stay on top of that. But just in case someone's like, why isn't she stopping and answering questions? Because it's a video recording. But it's still going to be awesome. And we can use the chat to talk to each other while the presentation is going on. So, things that she says we can talk about in the chat and emphasize in the chat for ourselves. I am, yes, hopefully. Suzanne says, hopefully this will deal with the bombers. As a webinar, I can kick people out pretty easily. So hopefully this will be fine. Yes, so thank you for joining me. I know there's lots to choose from, and this is going to be a fabulous presentation. I guarantee you, I've seen Marie do this one before, and it's going to be amazing. Use the chat. So make sure that you go to the little chat box and change it to everyone so that everyone will see your chat, not just me. So make sure it's set to everyone. I think I tried to default it to that, but just in case it's not, if it says to hosts and panelists, I'm the only one who will see it. Okay. So we will use the chat during this session for sure. What else can I tell you? So there's so much in this talk of Marie's. My hope is that this recording is going to work and I will be able to put this up as a replay on the Fit to Write family YouTube channel. I'll put that in the chat sometime as we're listening to Marie. So that's my plan. Fingers crossed that the tech works, that I'll be able to do that. I think that's it. So I'm kind of nervous about this. I hope it works. Fingers crossed, everyone, that we get this video started. So I'm just going to go right into it. Again, thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to share my screen and mute myself so that there's no echo. Make sure I'm sharing the sound from my computer. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Here we go. Okay, so I'm still going to be in the chat. So if anything goes wrong, let me know. I'm going to mute myself for now so that we don't get any feedback. So when this starts, let me know if you can hear it and see it okay.
Hello, my name is Marie Bilodeau, and I am very happy today to be here to talk to you about reaching the end, breaking beyond writer's block, getting words on the page, all of that giant portfolio that speaks to what writers need to do to get stories out there. A little bit about who I am. You might have seen, first of all, I think I'm funny, but you might have seen a little piece of cat hair right now floating in front of my camera. That's because there was a cat here 2 seconds ago. So if you see a cat fly by, if you see them running by and leaving cat hair everywhere, don't worry about it. It's all part of the show. All right, so who am I? I am a professional storyteller, so I tell stories, and I'm also a writer. So I write fantasy, science fiction, horror, Um, I have a lot of books out there. I've also done some ghostwriting. I've done some pen name writing. So I have, I've never actually tried to calculate how many books I have out there. Now I'm curious, but I'd say at least 50 books out there that I've written, at least. I'm also getting into IP writing right now, which is intellectual property. So those are writing for, I'm under NDAs, which are non-disclosure agreements, so I can't discuss them yet, but they're very cool. So I'll have a lot of cool announcements. But anyways, getting words on the page is the most important part of it all, because if you don't do that, the words can't go anywhere. It's kind of the first step. I'm going to tell you a lot of things throughout this entire workshop. We're going to look at two things principally. First, we're going to look at you, the writer, and then we're going to look at your story. Usually you'll find the cause of writer's block in one of those two things. Now, I'm saying writer's block because it's writer's block isn't a thing. It's not like, this giant brick wall that appears in front of you and suddenly you must smash through or perish. Writer's block can be many different things, and it's just whatever stops you from being able to get those words on the page at that time. Okay. Um, which is huge. That is the most huge thing ever, because you are a writer and you have to write these things, right? It's important. It's part of your job. And whether or not you've written a lot, or if you've written a lot even, these are all tips and tricks that I still use as my toolbox of writing. So hopefully you'll get some of them that will work for you. Take notes as you can. You might find yourself reacting emotionally to something that I say, you'll be insulted, or you'll be like, ooh, or whatever it is. Mark down those emotional reactions as well. If you feel insulted or kind of thrown off by something, there might be a reason for that, and that's up to you to figure it out. This is very personal. This is for you. But start where you have emotional reactions, because that might actually reveal a lot to you about you. Be honest with yourself too. So as you're writing down notes, if something comes to you and says, oh yeah, no, I totally procrastinate this way, or this is how I feel about it. So whatever it is, be honest, write it down. Those are your notes. They're for you, and they're important that for you to keep around, so that you will have them when you get stuck again. There's something to refer to when you notice you haven't written for a while. What does that look like for a while? That's up to you to define again. Writing is a very personal process. Writing is about you. Um, so whatever I say to you is not prescriptive. It's things that work for me or that work for others. Some of my friends, stuff even I've read online that I've put in my toolkit because I'm like, this might come in handy at some point, even though it's not necessarily applicable to me now. I've been writing or published since for about 13 years. I should have done like math before showing up, eh? For about 13 years, I have been published, and all of the advice that you get out there, and there's a lot, and all of the stories of success and failures, which can, hearten you or discourage you, either one can do that. They're all very personal, and this is about your journey. Who I was as a writer 13 to 14 years ago, I'm not now as a writer. Like, I have changed. I've grown. What stops me from writing is different. I'm in a different life phase than I was. I've got different responsibilities. I'm a different person. We evolve and change, just like our writing evolves and changes as well. So write down um, things that you think might not even help you today, because in 5 years from now, that might be the thing that helps you get unstuck. Okay. So what is procrastination? Somebody once told me early on in my career that if you procrastinate, you're lazy. I disagree with that assessment. I strongly disagree with this. If you're one of those people, which you might be, a lot of people are, who keeps calling yourself lazy, um, let's stop yourself, okay? So if you're there like, I'm lazy, that's why I'm not writing. Pause, put a pause in your mental dialogue with yourself, and remind yourself that you're not lazy. Few people are actually lazy. Like, were I rich, perhaps I would be lazier. But as it stands, but instead of using the word lazy, like I am lazy right now, so I'm not writing, ask yourself instead, are you overwhelmed? Are you stressed? Are you unfocused? Are you overcommitted? Are you worried about something? Is one of your loved ones suffering and that's distracting you? Are you living through a global pandemic? Okay. Is the world around you actually on fire? I don't know where you are. I don't know what your reality is. But I know that chances are it's one of those reasons, the ones that I just listed, that you're not writing. It's not because you're lazy, okay? By constantly calling yourself lazy, you're going to start to internalize that monologue and you're going to start to believe that you are actually a lazy person, whereas you are not. What you are, and this might be breaking news and it might be hard to hear, you are human. Oh, um, and that's okay. And humans have this emotional baggage that they create and then carry around with them. And other people's baggage just falls on them. And the world, we can't exactly extract ourselves from it, be that writer or staring out the window with the mountain vistas inspiring us. That's not the reality of most writers, and probably not your reality as well. But you're not lazy. And I'll give you the first point of reminder for this. You can write this down on your page. Why am I not lazy? Because here you are today on a weekend, instead of frolicking or hanging out with friends or doing whatever it is you want to do. And if you're watching this later, that's fine too. What you are doing is you are spending an hour of your time learning how to write more instead of doing all the other things. So you're not lazy. You've got ambition. You've got willpower. Sometimes it's just hard to pull on it, and willpower is it's a resource that can be drained. So sometimes your willpower is just drained and you cannot write. Okay. So whether or not that means you need to, like, whatever is stopping your emotional whatever's sucking your emotional bandwidth out, whatever that is, that's something that only you can identify. And sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's too big to resolve, like global pandemic, right? But if it's something, if something you can change in your life or make better for yourself, you know by all means consider it. But you can't always, and I understand that. I'm not saying leave your husband and children and go write in the forest with the bears. I mean, if that's your thing, have at it. But if it's not, then perhaps consider other ways of doing it. And that's just to find a way to hoard some of that energy, make some of the other things a little bit easier on yourself so that you have energy for writing. When I worked full time, I'm a freelancer right now. So I've been a freelancer since 2014, which is a whole other, like, subject for how do you maintain work-life balance. You don't. But one of the things that I did is I would write first thing in the morning. I would get up earlier. I would take the bus downtown where I worked, and I would be at the coffee shop when it opened at 6:30. I would start work at 8, so I would write until 7:30, 8, 7:45, and then I would get going. And the reason I did it in the morning was because I wasn't drained by then. I wasn't awake, which wasn't always a bad thing. I couldn't stop myself. So just different things for you to think about. But we'll talk about that a little bit more too. Um, you're probably going to have to learn to have a bit of tough love too when it comes to the writing. I don't like saying tough love, but tough love didn't work for me as a term. And I do believe that the terminologies we use do impact us because, we all interpret things differently. What worked for me is I ask myself, how will I feel by end of day if I've written? So how how will future Marie feel this evening when she looks back at her day and say, "Hey, I have worked today. I have written. I have done the one thing that's most important to me right now in a personal capacity, not like, family or all of that. Like I have done that one thing that if I don't do, I will be at the same place I was today tomorrow and even a little bit slipped back because I'll have gotten further from the writing." Okay? So ask yourself, that question is, how will you feel at the end of the day if you've written, if you've done the work that is important to you? Okay. And then be dedicated to it. One of the things that helps me is to remember my goals. So I have like a long-term goal, right? It's like, I want to be one of those people that she's got so many books, I can never read all of them. What is wrong with her? That's who I want to be. So I write, I have fun with it. My own goal too is I want to monetize the writing. I would like to live from the writing, which is where the IP writing comes in for me, because these people pay as opposed to, publishers will pay as well, but there's your with an IP, people will pick it up because it's that name, it's a Star Trek novel, or I'm not writing for Star Trek. They'll pay it, you'll get your money. But when it's your own work, it's a different money qualifier unless you break out, which can take a while. But anyways, that's a whole other discussion. If your goals are to make money though, ping me. We can talk on another way. Uh, and the idea behind it is going to take a while. Buckle up, my friend. But be dedicated to your goals. So if you want to just finish one book, then you need to get to the end of your book. That's, I mean, right? It's the basics of it. Um, we're going to talk about writing a lot now. So I'm going to give you a bunch of different tricks, okay? So if you're stopped because of the writing. So how to beat writer's block. Again, writer's block not being an actual wall, just being something that is stopping you from writing. I've always heard the advice show up every day, which annoyed me because, you know, I don't want to show up on the weekends. I don't always have the time to show up every day. You know, I had a big job. I would travel all the time. Even now, I don't show up every day. Okay. Like people like Stephen King show up every day. Bless their hearts. That's amazing. I have other things on my plate. I'm juggling too many things, you know. But this is why I will make an argument for showing up every day. Regardless of me telling you all of that, why should you show up to your writing every day? We're going to define showing up. Showing up means reading your writing, thinking about your writing, the story that you're working on. So a specific story that you're working on, thinking about it, working on it, sitting with it for a while. And it doesn't necessarily mean getting words down. Sometimes it's just getting 20 words down, jotting a new idea, a piece of dialogue, something like that. The reason that I recommend showing up every day, regardless of whether I do it or not, is that then you don't lose the thread of your story. Simple as that. Because if you leave your story along for too long, when you go to come back to it, you won't remember it. It won't be as fresh in your mind. You'll have forgotten the zing, the spark, the thing that drew you to it. So you'll have to reread your story and then reread your notes. If you're like me, your notes won't really make sense and your handwriting will be terrible. And you'll be like, what is this? So you're going to have to take some time to re-sit back into the story, and you're going to lose some time doing that, and then you might never refine the thread of the story because it's gone, like the story's moved on. It's like, fine, whatever, I'll vanish into the ether. So that's why I say showing up every day is important. It's like a relationship, right? You want to give a little bit attention to it every day so that it maintains, it stays warm. Do it with a story. Just a little, and again, it doesn't need to be like I need to sit for an hour and draft, you know, 500 words every day. No. It can be 20 words. It can be just thinking about a piece of dialogue, thinking about your scene while you're walking your dog or something, you know, just a little something that it stays fresh in your mind. It's still part of your thought processes. Okay. When you do decide to sit down and write, which hopefully will be more days rather than not, but again, it's up to your reality. This is very personal. You don't need to be all things that people say you should be as a writer, because those people are wrong. You need to be you as a writer. Um, one of the things that I do when I go to write, because I have the attention span of a gnat, I leave my phone upstairs in the kitchen. So I write, this is my basement office. Welcome to my basement office. um, so I will come down here where it is nice and quiet, and there's a creepy door behind me where a monster might leap out at any moment. And I leave my phone upstairs because I will find myself otherwise with my phone in my hands without me even being aware that I'd done that. Like there was no thought process. It's just that's called an addiction. It's just what you do, right? You just grab it, and Twitter, because Twitter is so much easier. Social media is catered to, like, you know, and the phones are created to capture and keep our attention. That's how they get their data. That's how they get their, you know, their little extra likes and their points that they can sell to shareholders. We have so many people doing so much all day. So they're made to capture your attention, and they're excellent at it. Bless their hearts. So I leave mine upstairs, go away. And then on my computer, my desktop, because the internet is not far when you're on a computer. Have you heard of the internet? The internet is a problem sometimes. Wonderful tool. But so then what I use is I use this, there's a lot of different programs too. I'm not like doing a pitch here, but I use Freedom on my computer, and it's compatible with several devices. It can be on PCs, on Macs, on phones, whatever. And I block all of the internet. You can just block distracting websites. Just so like the internet is a distracting website as far as I'm concerned. So I block all the internet for like an hour. You tell it how long, and it's really hard to undo. And if you piss it off too much, like it yeah, it gets madder at you. So anyway, so I use that, and then I have no internet anywhere, and then I sit here and I write. I put the focus mode on. I write with Word. I put the focus mode. Most word processors will have that focus, and then all you see are your words. Like it takes away the top bars, the bottom bars, the word count, everything is just this is your page, these are your words, right? And I do that sometimes even for fun, so that I take the pressure out of it. Okay, and this is the hard reality of writing, and which is also helpful, I think. Getting the first draft down is 25% of the work, more or less. After that, you've got to edit, blah, make it better, rewrite, do some things, and then shop it and all that stuff. But to get a full complete draft, it's not just reaching the end that you'll get your complete draft, is then you have to make it better. So, the sooner you get to the end, the sooner you can make it better so it can go out and meet its readers. Um, and for me, I find that this is a pitch, just, a little sidebar here. I find that getting to the end is important because I can't see the full length of the story and the full arcs, the character arcs, the development arcs until I'm at the end. When I'm at the end, I can look back through all of it and say like, oh, um, this was wrong because of this didn't work because of this, or if I did a scene like this before and it would really support this cool thing I've got at the end now. And then I can see the whole story. Some people do like crazy outlines where they can like see the whole story from the get-go. I'm not that person. I usually have a bit of an outline just to give me an idea, because it does help me write faster, but writing faster is my thing. Just writing can be your thing. You don't need to have an outline. Again, you can just go follow your joy. But when you get to the end, then you can see your entire book and you can see where the weaknesses are, what you can make better, so that you can start making it better to make it more appealing to whatever your next step is, whether it's self-publishing or traditionally publishing, small press, whatever it is. Like, you will have that product to show to people, which the first draft rarely is. So getting to the end is important because of that. So staying on the job is what's important, because unless you put in the time, you stay on the job, you won't be able to get to the end and then make it really shine. Commit to the long haul. When you're committing to a story, I see my stories as relationships. Um, if I commit to a novel, I usually work on that novel until it's done. I don't, some people do this, I can't. That might just be like how my brain works, right? Your brain probably works differently, which cool. Um, I usually finish my novels. Like I'll start a novel. Sometimes I'll have to do short stories in between because they're expected, or there's a call I'm really interested in or something. Sometimes I'll put a pin in a novel and then spend a couple of days, do a short story, send that off, and go back to the novel. But if I can, I usually try to stick with one novel, so that the story is always the freshest in my mind, and I get kind of inundated with the story. It's like it just pounds my brain into pulp until it takes it over and reshapes it the way it wants to see it. And I like that process. That's how I work again. I'm a hyper focuser. So I hyper focus on something. Like I can spend a whole weekend just writing on this story, and I'm in my happy zone. I have a very supportive partner, which helps that happy zone. But that's how I work again. So just something for you to think of. But if you are a hyper focuser, then make sure that you can succeed in that space. So make sure that the only thing you have to focus on is the writing. That's how I do it. Because otherwise it's like, wow, things everywhere. So much fun. There's a cat right there. I'm going to hug it, stuff like that. So I hyper focus, although I can't get rid of the cats. They're everywhere. Um, so be aware of who you are. And that's why it's important to make this about you. So who are you? You know yourselves. You've been living with yourself this long. Other people have maybe tried to tell you you're a different way than you know you are, but you know you. You have an idea of how you react to things, what distracts you, what catches your attention. Are you hyper focuser? Do you have a really hard time focusing? That's me. I have a hard time focusing. Once I'm focused, I'm hyper focused, but I got to get into it first. Okay. So know yourself. That will be a big advantage to you, and be aware that you will change. You as a person will evolve, grow, change. Some things that worked once will change as well. So be open to re-examining how you view things. Um, be patient with yourself. Be patient with your writing. Give it the space to grow, and give yourself the space to breathe as well. One of my biggest problems is that I go from thing to 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 thing. And it begins to feel a bit like, like I'm a hamster caught in the wheel here. And I'm not even like super successful hamster. I like go around that wheel, fall down. It's not good. And then when I feel that way, I take a step back, which is not easy. Um, and I go do something different. You refill my creative wells. I will go like to a farmer's market to look at things. I'll go take a walk. It's just something different to break myself out of that constant spinning cycle, which, let's face it, the world really does ask of us, right? Like, if you're not busy all the time, are you even like, should you even be breathing? You can feel that way, maybe you don't, and that's good. Sometimes I feel that way. I'm a freelancer again, so I've had to learn to put big boundaries up, and those boundaries have helped me a lot in every way. So be patient with yourself, give yourself that chance. When I have in front of me a board that just has things that inspire me, and clips and stuff. And I have this note from my brother here, which is kind of front and center. It's important to me. And on the first day that I went freelance, I kind of rage quit my job. Rage quit your office job. Who needs savings? Terrible idea, by the way. Do it smarter than me. Although I eventually landed on my feet. So, follow your joy. Um, and on the first day, I was a full freelancer. My brother was already a freelancer. He was a technical trainer, but he did it on a freelance basis. And he dropped by for lunch. And I thought this was adorable. I'm like, oh, we're gonna have lunch as freelance buddies now. We only did it that one time. But he dropped by for lunch. We ate lunch at my house. And then, he was like, okay, he stayed for an hour because that was the lunch break. And I'm like, okay, my brother has some kind of wisdom to impart or something. We did talk a bit about the freelance life and all that. And then he laughed. I was like, okay. So I sat down to, okay, but in a good way, like it was pleasant. And then I opened my laptop to write because I really wanted to live as a writer. If you just jump into like the amount of time it takes for money to flow back to the writer is, in retrospect, it was not feasible, but it's all good. I tried. Um, I opened my laptop, and right on the keyboard was the note that's now up there, and it says action cures fear. And I keep it there because whenever I get really stuck or I hesitate, or I think there's a lot to be scared of when you're a writer. There's all those little fears that are at the back of your head, like, will they like it? Do I suck? Will I get, you know, um, will I make my mom sad? Because it's a murder book and everybody gets murdered. You have all those fears at the back of your head. Will I make it? Will I not? Will I make it too big and not be able to reproduce the success? Will I find a publisher? Will I not find, all of those fears are just like that they can really stifle your writing. So I put action cures fear right there. And then it's like, okay, no, just do. My job as a writer is to write, get those words down, and then que sera sera afterwards. I cannot control what will happen after I'm done the book, but I can do the best book I can to give it the best chance, right? But if I don't get that work done and do it over and over and over again, then it will never get better. And this is the thing about writing too. If you do it over and over and over again, you do get better. Writing is the best training to getting to more better writing, which is, it sounds a little bit basic, but it's easy to forget. So you just need to get it done, and then you need to do it again and again to the best of your ability every time. Okay. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Hopefully you have a writing community. If not, hopefully you'll find one online. Maybe you'll find some even here. That would be brilliant. Sometimes it helps to talk things through. I have a friend who's an amazing author, Linda Poitvin, who writes under Lydia M. Hawk as well. And she and we always talk things through, like, and we call each other. Well, I'll get a little text saying, hey, do you have the time to chat today about, I'm stuck or something? And then I'm like, yep, because, she helps me out. I do the same thing to her too. I'm stuck in my story. I just need to talk it through with a writer, and not someone who'll be prescriptive in their answers. Just like, this is a problem. It's badly articulated because I'm having a hard time figuring it out, but I'm stuck here. And then I'll just ask random questions. Until she unblocks herself. It's magnificent. And then she's like, oh, you're so great. And I'm like, no, I made you do the work, but hey, I'll take the compliment. And she does the same thing for me too. She just asked me a few questions, like, oh my God, I got it. And you're the best. And she's like, oh, I know. And so hopefully a writer like that can help you get unstuck sometimes, because sometimes we can't see it. Also in your personal life, help, like if you've got kids or extra responsibilities, or even if you just don't want to be bothered for like, an hour or two to write, talk to your partner about it. how can the writing integrate into both your lives in a way that is maintainable for both of you? Because if you're in a household with other people who rely on you kind of on a day to day, you're there, you're the team, it's your house, you're working together. Talk to them about, I really want to achieve this, I really want to try this. Um, can I have an hour after the kids go to bed or something just to myself, or whatever it is, like whatever you can negotiate with your partner. Hopefully you have a good supportive partner. I wish that for you. And then make sure you stick with it. Like they will not take your um, or day. I'm not going to point fingers here, but um, priorities and kind of borders are harder to take seriously if you don't enforce them yourself. So if you say, I'm going to write each night after the kids go to bed, and your partner says, yes, I will support you in writing each night after your kids go to bed, after the kids go to bed, then do it every night, because you've made a commitment, and now your partner is not expecting you to be available, and they're going to read or watch TV or whatever they want to do, and you go and do your thing. Because if you always give way, if you always say, oh well, why don't we do this instead, or it'll be easier if, then you're not being a good partner to yourself. You see what I mean? You need to respect the own boundaries that you're setting, and the plans that you're setting with someone else as well, so that they know what to expect. Um, I do that once in a while when I get closer to ending a novel. Like the last third of it, I can just like, that's when I really hyper focus. I just like, and it works for me. The story is vivid, it's quick. I fast type. I got this gaming keyboard that I just love, and it's flashy and colorful, and it's fast, like it's fast, and I can type really fast. And um so I love my keyboard, and I love hyper focusing, but I need sometimes a whole weekend away. And I go to like usually it's a convent or a deconsecrated convent or something, where because there's not that many, in Quebec. I go to Quebec often, sometimes in Ontario as well, but mostly in Quebec. And they have like three nuns left alive, and it's an abbey or a convent or something. So they give you for like a really low price. You have your meal, you have a small room with like a desk, and there's no internet. And your meals are all included, and you can take a silent retreat so no one talks to you, depending on the convent, and you don't have to do religious services. Like I make sure, like I'm not religious, so I'm not going to do religious services. So I make sure that, and nobody, like I've been doing this for years, and it's wonderful because I can really hyper focus. Sometimes I leave my phone in the car, and then I just check it once a day, or I tell my partner, if you really need to reach me, call the front desk here. And then if there's an emergency, but if there's an emergency, I can't do anything, I'm far away, they can figure it out. Um, so it's, yeah, for me that works. But I set those boundaries again. I discuss them with the primary person in my life, and I let all my other primary people. So my mom, myself, I let them all know where I'm at and what I'm doing. They'll cheer me on. They'll feel like they're part of the process, but they're not cheering me on in person because I'm away. Some people do group writing and they find that super motivating, either on Zoom, or on in person in coffee shops. They find that motivating. It doesn't really work for me. I'm a social creature. If I'm doing something in group, I want to use it to socialize. That's me. I'm an extrovert, right? So if I want to hyper focus, I need to really introvert. There's no middle ground, really, apparently. Um, so be clear on who you are, and if it motivates you to write with other people, there are a bunch of little Zoom groups, different associations you can reach and stuff. um, and you can just, maybe some people will share some ideas, and you can join them, and you're just sitting quietly, and you're all supposed to be writing at the same time, which is motivating, right? Okay. Don't take failure or success too personally. This is hard to say. It's something very mystical about writing. To me, it's not the writing itself necessarily, but it's what happens afterwards. Does it resonate with someone? Does it not? It's hard to predict those things. So don't take the failures too personally. Don't let them crush you and stop you, because if you stop, the only, like, in the long run, the person who will most regret it will be you, more than likely, unless you're done. Then if you're done, that's you to know. But and success as well, because if you think like, I'm a genius, I got this award or whatever, you won't necessarily be able to replicate it. And that might crush you, that might stop the writing. Again, we're talking about all the things that might stop you writing. That is another one. If you start to over identify with the failure or the success, your success is to finish works, to get works done and out. Though that's your success. Do write the best stories you can, of whatever length they are. That's your success. So try to continue doing that, and that whatever happens in the great wide world out there, I've had amazing successes, Others, I'm like, why wasn't this bigger success? And you just keep on moving. I've ghostwritten New York Times bestsellers, ghostwritten. Ah, so so that's a great success. That's something I can use for myself. I have had things I thought would succeed fail miserably. I've been nominated for awards, which was great, but I know that what matters the most is writing the next book. So I keep moving forward, and that is motivating because I can't wait to see what that next book will do. Maybe it'll do great, maybe it won't. It's all good. I'll enjoy the book, and that's important too. Okay. Um, if you start having a hard time with a routine, like I mentioned, co-writing and all that, if you write at home or something, try switching stuff up. This is just a little really like, um, kind of a basic trick, but it really works for me. I used to write at home, and then when I'd get stuck, I'd go write in coffee shops, which I don't do anymore because pandemic. But in the summer, I'll write outside, which I find really lovely. I'll write in the kitchen sometimes, but the living room is Carrie's office, so I don't want to get in her space all the time, even though there's a bit of a break between us. But sometimes it works, like if she's not taking meetings or something, then I'll sit in the kitchen, I'll have my earbuds in, and we'll both respect each other's working spaces, and that's fun. Sometimes just going up or down changes. Sometimes I'll even just grab a notebook. I'm a very much a typer, um, but sometimes I'll grab a notebook with pen and paper, and I will just do that instead of typing, because it helps to break down the barriers, whatever they are that I've got. Um, so and sometimes I feel like my brain goes too fast, and I need to slow it down so that I can see what is actually happening, because it's like it's scrambling to find footing. So the pen and paper helps me find footing. I get pens, notebooks, and pens that I love, so that they're fun to write with. That's just me. I'm into the tactile experience of it. But if you are like, get something that you like, and then otherwise feel free to just do whatever works for you, no matter how basic. But I find that helps. Changing location, changing keyboards, changing from desktop to laptop, sometimes going for a walk, listening to music, just letting the mind kind of free. Some people narrate as well. Narration can work. It doesn't work for everyone. There's a lot of great narration tools out there. Even Words Narrator, the little like dictate tool that they have is actually quite good now. Otherwise, there's Dragon by Nuance. That's expensive, but it's also quite good. And if you like dictation, if you think it would be something different, especially for your dialogue, and you can kind of act it out as you go. You're not married to anything that you dictate, just like you're not married to anything that you write, because you can go back and edit. And that's important to remember, is it's okay to have a shitty first draft. It's easier to get the shitty first draft clean often than it is to write out the words on the blank page. So that has its own power. Um, so, you know, just getting the words down sometimes helps. If I don't have the perfect word, or if I've blocked my internet and I need to do some research, I'll just put some stars in there so that I keep writing. And then I'll go back when I don't feel like drafting. I just feel like maybe doing a bit of research or something. Then because there are different parts of your brain, right? Sometimes you're more into, oh, I feel more like researching or editing instead of drafting. So then I'll do that instead. And then I'll make it better. And I know that whatever words I use now, I'm just getting the flow of the action and the emotional responses, because that's what I get when I'm drafting. And then the words themselves, I can switch them out later. I can make them better. I can tighten them. I can do whatever needs to happen to make that text pop. I can do that later. So that's why I see my first draft as like that 25% work, because I need to go back and make it better. I have a book due end of year, and the way that I'm doing it right now is I want to finish the first draft by October. I just signed the contract like 2 weeks ago, and I want to finish the first draft by end of no September. Okay, so 100,000 words. First draft end of September. That's a lot of work. I don't know if I'll do it. Like that might be a bit too ambitious. I have to see what else I have to do, but I think I can do it. And then 2 months to clean it up, like just to make it better. Like the first draft is going to be rough, so I want to make it better after that. Um, and then the fun. You'll notice that I said 2 months after September. That's October and November. I want to hand it in early, because December is a lot of food. Like a lot of food. Like there's pies, and there's tostière, and there's turkey and turkey pot pie. And I usually try to take, the time between Christmas and New Year's completely off. So I don't want to be finishing a book then. I want to be on my couch eating, because they, and the cheese and the meats and the desserts that I mentioned that Carrie's a baker. I mean, so that's what I want to do in December. So it's a different plan than writing, and I'm preparing myself for it because that is the reality of my life. December is about eating, not about writing so much. I might do some short stories then, but I don't want to be finishing up a novel. I want to be done by then. So that's what I'm targeting. And if I fail, I've got, like 2, 3 weeks before Christmas. So I've still got the time to like get it clean and done by then. So just, and what I'm doing here is I'm being realistic with how long a first draft takes, how long cleaning it will take me, which is will be longer than the first draft, and then what my life looks like as well. Because if you always deny what your life is actually like, and you're like, I should be able to, um, that's that might be an indication. If you say you should be able to but you can't, then there's an indication that you're missing some factors. You're not taking into account some factors from your own life, your own reality, which you need to. You can try to just power through each time and just like, I gotta write, but that leads to burnout. That leads to, and burnout isn't good. Most writers will go through it. I've gone through it several times. That leads to months, usually, sometimes, of no words. So you want to pace yourself, do it realistically in a way that is maintainable. So there you go. If you need to, also, you are completely allowed to take breaks from your art. Um, to refill your creative wells, do it in such a way that you're refilling your creative wells. So you're going to museums or to things that inspire you, listening to music, binging Witcher again on Netflix, whatever it is that inspires you. Okay, so you're allowed to take those breaks as long as there are breaks that are purposeful towards refilling your creative wells. So you're doing things that do inspire you. Um, Speaking of binging, start considering short-term gains versus long-term losses, or long-term gains as well. So if you like binging, I love binging stuff on Netflix or whatever streaming platform you may have. It's fun. It requires little of me. It's a complete storyline. There's emotional arcs. It's great. Sometimes the character I love dies. I cry. It's wonderful. Um, but that's a short-term gain. Like I will get that emotional oomph, that moment of satisfaction. I've completed something, those emotional impacts. I will get to laugh, to cry. I will feel all that, and I will feel like I have accomplished a lot because I've watched an entire series or something, right? Or show, whatever. And that's a short-term gain. Again, they want you to do that. They, being those creators, want you to give them their attention because that's how they get their ratings, that's how they get their monies, that's how the money flows, right? It's by getting people's attention. That's the biggest thing you have to give them, is your time. So they're working very, very hard at getting that attention, and social media helps because there's ads, but people also talk about it, and you want to be part of the pop culture moment or whatever it is that week, and so it tries to draw you in, right? But think, instead of like, okay, I'll feel good to have watched this and I'll be in the know, think about your long-term gains. If instead I write and I create more than I consume, then I will put out a product, and then that will gain people's attention too. And then they trade their time, and it's all the commodity, right? But you have time is your main commodity. Money as well is important, but time is one of the biggest ones right now that our society holds dear. We want time. People want you to give them their attention. And if you don't give your story the attention, then you are robbing your future self of what you've created as opposed to what you've consumed. So just something to keep in mind. Sometimes it helps me to remember that, like, yeah, people want you to pay attention to everything because that's how they get their metrics, and metrics are huge nowadays, right? That's what the internet runs on, metrics, and most things run on the internet. So something, look for your own experiences, look for your own writing, and to create. Don't just be a consumer, be a creator. Don't stop being a consumer. Consuming is great. Um, depends what you consume, people. We're talking about binging Netflix shows right now. But I try to be a little bit more, target my consumption. So when the TV's over there, that's why I'm looking over there. When I binge Netflix shows, or I look at a show, I usually try to target something that both Carrie and I are interested in, and then we sit together and enjoy it. So it's a social thing. It's a, we're hanging out together, because otherwise it's easy to just to lose touch, even though you're always in the same house because it's pandemic. But so we do that together. And then I try to not just consume that. I try to read a lot too. I don't just read sci-fi and fantasy, even though that's what I write. I read everything. I don't read like I should read this. It was an award winner. No. I read the things I want to read, the things that caught my eye, that have my attention, that are interesting, that have different voices. Just, I try to read those things that I'm hungry for. So I always follow my joy. Like I finished this book next. Oh, I think I'm going to read that. Or so that way I read more. Because if you're always just doing the things you should do, again, that word, it's going to be harder to move ahead. That qualifies for the writing as well. Like the should, when you were a kid, did you do all the things you should do? They were harder to do. Reading is the same thing. Writing is the same thing too. So if you're writing a story where you're like, should, I should write this, I should do that, it makes it hard too. Okay. On that note, we're going to move back. We're going to move now. We have about not a whole lot of time. I've talked a bit about the writing here and there. I'm going to give you some ideas on the writing end if you get stuck on the writing end. We talked a lot about you. So right now we're moving back. Okay, first, is this the book you want to be writing, or are you just writing the book because you had a clever idea, because you see a hole in the market, but you're having a hard time getting the book out? It might not be the book that you want to write or that you're interested enough in writing. Now, you can do two things with that. You can either change books towards something that really speaks to you, or you can make the book that you're targeting more interesting to you by changing something about the characters, changing something about the plot, whatever it is, something that draws your attention to it. Okay. So it's not necessarily like most ideas can be recycled in some form or another if they don't quite work in that form. So you can easily do that depending on what kind of a writer you are, again, and what you want to accomplish as well. So feel free to do that. This it's the idea of like what you should write versus what you want to write. Be always careful of that. Be mindful with your writing, of course, but you can write the story that speaks to you, uh, and then you just have to be ready, like be ready to commit to it. Okay. Um, if you get stuck in your story, which you might, and you probably will because we all do. Oh, wait, before I do that, there is a point in a story too. There's like a honeymoon period, right? You get the idea and you're like, oh yeah, this is the best thing ever. Yoo-hoo! And then you just jump in and you're ready to go and it's exciting and you're writing. And then usually at about the 1/3 point mark, thereabouts, or sometimes even the quarter mark, you'll get stuck. This story sucks. This is the worst. I don't want to write this anymore. Why am I doing this? How did I think this was a good idea? I don't have a novel in this. And all of your energy deflates. And then usually, you suddenly get this other idea that you're like, oh, wait, but if I did that idea instead, that one's a good idea. That one's clever. That one's the best. I'm going to do that instead. And then you jump. You know what's going to happen with that new clever idea, the one that you should have written from the start that you think is now the best? Same thing's going to happen around a quarter to a third of the way through. It just happens. If it doesn't, brilliant. Sometimes it doesn't happen in certain books. Most books will happen, but I'm aware of it. So don't jump projects. First of all, that will be the death of your first project, unless it's really not salvageable. And then ask yourself, am I being lazy? Am I just stuck? Am I tired of this? Remind yourself, what did you think was cool about this book? Like, go back to your early notes. Hopefully you have some. Ask yourself, what is cool about this book? What do I love about this book? What about the characters that I really enjoyed? And where did I lose that love? And why did I lose it? Sometimes it's just because you're stuck. You don't know where to go next. It's unclear. You might be starting to get the nagging doubts at the back of your head. Shove them away. It's hard. I don't want to like minimize that, but do try to like ignore them and keep moving forward. Even if you're like, I don't know how they get out of this, this jail that I've thrown them in. Leave a blank chapter with a note, figure out how to get out, and then get to the next spot in the story where they're running away from the sheriff or whatever it is you're doing in your story. Okay? That's okay. You want to keep going forward. And if you're not a sequential writer, that's okay too. You don't have to write in sequence. Like a sequential writer, that's like me. I generally write scene as they come in order. Some people will write the end, the middle. Keep doing that as long as you keep writing until you have a full story. That's cool too. Okay. So if you're stuck in your writing, there's a lot of tools out there that will really help you, and some of them you'll find even here. So look back, think of the plot arc. So like, are you confused with your plot arc? Did you get stuck somewhere? Is it because you're really low tension right now? So you need to up the tension? Um, this is a big one. Does your character need to make a decision? Often, we get so caught up in the story that the characters don't necessarily make as many decisions. Sometimes, depending again on what type of writer you are. For me, I found that when I finished Destiny's Blood, which was one of my first space opera, one of my first published books. When I got to the end of the book and when I was editing it, I realized that if I took my main character, La Yellow de la Maurice, and I moved her aside and I replaced her with a sack of potatoes, I would have the exact same story. Oops. So what I did, I was like, huh, I need a character with agency, right? I mean, they need to do something, have some purpose for being, not just like somehow getting dragged from place to place. And the action was still palpitating and fun and all that, but she wasn't making enough decisions. She was running a lot and not trying to take hold of her own, destiny. And depending on the type of book you write, it might be that they don't get to do that. But a lot of books, the character needs to make decisions, even if they're minor, like go left instead of right. Um, so what I did with that then is I did a study of characters. I wanted to look at fantasy tropes, so and different female fantasy tropes and kind of turn them on their head. So I wrote the Heirs of a Broken Line series, Princess of Light, Warrior of Darkness, Sources of Shadows, using 3 different female character tropes, having fun, turning them on their heads, creating strong characters with agency who were very different from one another. So it was basically a giant character study for me. And then I rewrote Destiny's Blood. I shopped Princess of Light and Destiny's Blood, and I sold both of those like within a week of each other. It was very fun. Um, so with each book now, what I do is I try to figure out, what am I going to do different? What am I going to stretch my writing legs on? Sometimes it's character, sometimes it's plot, sometimes it's language, whatever it is that I feel like I really want to just try something different, then I target that, and that energizes me because it's fun. I like learning, right? Throw in a twist too if you're stuck in your story because it's too linear. Make something different happen, something unexpected. Throw in a twist. Have fun with it. Make it change. Here are some questions that help me sometimes when I'm stuck with the character, because I might be leading them or I don't quite understand them as much as I should. I ask myself, what would my character never think? What would my character never think? What would my character never say? And then I write down, what will my character never do? Okay. And then after I've answered those 3 questions, so what will my character never think, say, or do? And then I write, what would force them or push them enough to think, say, or do those things? And how can I integrate that in my story? Because then I'm really pushing my characters, not to have them crumple or broken. Sometimes it's a lesser version of what they never say or think, but and then it pushes my character development further. It's not a cure-all tool, but it makes you think differently about your characters, right? So that's important. Um, Another one that helps me too whenever I'm stuck with my characters is what's motivating them. And I do this exercise several times in the manuscript at different points because the characters are at different points too. And then for 30 seconds, basically pick up pen and paper and write down what is motivating them in that moment. Like, what is their main motivation at that time, wherever you're writing it, whether it's the beginning of the book, later in the book. So 30 seconds, don't stop. Keep the pen rolling. Don't overthink it. Just get it out, whatever's motivating them. And then when you're done, put a timer. When the timer rings, pull up your pen and then look at everything you've written. And then chances are that the later ones in the list will be the most original ones, the most different ones, because you'll have dived deeper than the surface level obvious stuff. So that's what I did with a few of my characters, and it's really helped me push them. And when you're further in the story, it's interesting to do it again because your characters' motivations change because they evolve as people often. Sometimes they don't, but often they evolve. That gives them a character arc, right? So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Um, if you have too many secondary characters and that's kind of stifling your writing because you don't know who to write, which point of view anymore, ask yourself, do you have too many second characters? What role are they playing? Do you need to have them all? Um, I'm just looking at here. I'm just going to try to give you a few more things and then we'll call this done so that I don't keep you forever. If you get stuck in research traps, okay, so you're like, well, I can't write this until I've researched this. Sometimes yes, but readers don't need to know everything as well. You don't need to do info dumps, right? So because what you'll do is you'll keep the information within a character's point of view, and whatever the character knows is how they would see over the world. But you know when in like the crime shows like CSI and all that, you know, the old CSI, often you'll have two experts in the same field and they will detail to each other in great, like tell each other in great detail what exactly it is that they're doing. And you're like, you're explaining to him how this like basic DNA sequencer thing works when he's also works in the same lab. And I feel like in real life, this conversation would be like, you know, dude, I know, like I work here too, stop explaining or whatever. But in shows they use it because they want to explain the cool tech, and that's kind of the shticks they came up with. In writing, what you do is because usually your closer point of view, so you're telling from your character's point of view, you don't need to info dump. Like unless you're thinking about something for a specific reason, you don't need to info dump. Trust your reader. Okay, trust that your reader will follow. So a lot of times in research, you can just put a little note and say, you know, go back and you know, does this engine work, or this fusion machine, does it make sense, or how would vinegar impact, or insert poison here, or whatever it is. Like research can often become a procrastination tool, an actual procrastination tool. Okay. Um, okay. If you find that your story gets really boring, um, make it more interesting. Saying basic things. I have a little note that reminds myself here below my screen that says, if you're bored, your reader is bored. And if I'm bored writing it, then I'm like, okay, I need to change something here so that I keep writing it. I don't even worry about the reader at this point. I'm like, I need to keep writing this. How do I make this interesting? So then I do something like, you know, a character conflict that's interesting, or, you know, just a different kind of encounter or a twist in the story, something that makes it interesting. Okay. You're allowed to do that. Take pen and paper, just think on it, or your keyboard, think about it and think, what would make this interesting or rivet me again? What would keep me writing from here? What needs to happen? Twists, unforeseen things, like a new mystery, whatever it is, right? So think about that. Um, if you find your details are too boring, make them more lively. You don't need to stop the action to describe the palace or whatever it is. Bring us through it. Like we don't need to see every detail. Let your reader fill in the blanks. They will. Make your characters make decisions. Again, that's an important one. And switch things up. Just have fun with it. That's really important. Just follow your joy. Honestly, that will get you so far. Write the thing you want to write that you love. You know, think of something that you'd love to get better at, or learn as you go, and focus your energy on that. And then when you lose interest in your story, which you will, because it's a long haul, especially if you're writing a novel, it can be long. So just switch things up so that you continuously fall in love with it again. It's like, you know, it's like a relationship. Sometimes you've got to, you know, go on a date with your book or something, romance your book so that you can keep writing it. And that will make you happy. You know, celebrate the milestones, celebrate the small things. Have a fun chocolate. I have some boozy chocolates that Carrie's mom gave me for Christmas. They have Bailey's inside of them. And whenever there's any type of writing success, if it's finishing a story or just getting, you know, 2,000 words down because I really didn't want to, then Carrie and I each have a little, we open our little chocolates, we ching, and then we eat them. That's it. It's simple, it's small, but it makes me like, we're noting the fact that this was done and we're awesome. So you can have your little celebrations. Remember that writing is the only necessary act to finishing a book. Okay. And then editing is the necessary act to selling the book. Again, when approaching the climax, if you can, just take some time with your book so that you can just write through it. That's great. If not, don't worry about it. You'll get it done either way. Finish your draft. Again, finish your first draft. This is like really important. There's things that you won't be able to see until you get to the end. Draft number one is your gloriously messy full outline. It's only part of the journey. Finishing a draft one is more than most writers will ever do. So if you do that, you are like rocking it, and celebrate the milestones. That's important. Again, you are here, so you are not lazy. Take that thought out of your head. If you get stuck in the story, it could be you, it could be the story. Learn to kind of read the signs around both and learn to shift and be a little bit nimble with how you're going to approach the story and deal with your own self and your own brain space so that you can keep those words down and target reaching the end. Keep your goals in mind and you can do it. If you have questions or would like to ask anything specific, find me on Twitter. You can email me as well. I have a website, www.mariebilodeau.com. And it's just spelled my name. Twitter, I'm on the same. I've got a Facebook page. I'm on Instagram under Glitterbomb Bilodeau. Find me, tell me where you saw this workshop, and then feel free to ask me questions or at any time. It doesn't have to be today. If 3 weeks from now, you're like, I'm really stuck in this. Maybe she has an idea. Send me a message. I will be happy to help if I can. And I wish you the best of luck and keep on writing. Thanks for coming.
Yay. Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. That was so great. Thank you guys for being here. I am really going to try, cross my fingers, all the tech works, and have a replay up on my YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. It's time to go. I got another session that I'm leading next. So I'm going to say a really quick goodbye. Thanks for being here. Marie is amazing. We can talk about her in the When Words Collide Facebook group, and she would love that. So we'll do that too. So I'll see you guys hopefully in another session with Fit to Write or somewhere on the internet. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.